because now we're going to begin. This, first of all, Sister Act. Wasn't that amazing? Absolutely incredible. Thank you all for deciding to stay afterwards. We are going to now start our all-in community conversations presented by PNC. And this is about raising your voice through the arts. It's a spotlight on arts education. And I have the privilege and the honor this afternoon of sitting with some amazing people. I'm going to introduce them and then ask for them to please say something about yourselves. First, we have to my immediate left, Dorothea Taylor. She is the choir director at Shaw University, which was founded in 1865 and was the first historically Black institution of higher education in the South. Dorothea?
Good afternoon. As she said, I am Dorothea Taylor. I am pleased to serve currently as the choir director and assistant professor of music at Shaw University. I am the recipient of many opportunities that have afforded me because I also attended an HBCU, which is Bennett College in Greensboro, North Carolina, one of two historically Black colleges for women in the South.
Thank you, Dorothea. Next to Dorothea, we have Nicole Morgan. She is the co-founder and the CEO of the Gifted Arts, an 11-year-old local nonprofit that transforms the lives of youth through culturally artistic experiences. Nicole?
Yes, thank you for having me. Again, my name is Nicole Morgan, and I am proud to be here sitting alongside my fellow arts leaders and also my husband, CJ Morgan. We are the co-founders together. I'm just here to provide an opportunity to shed light on the experiences that we've been able to offer our young people over the years. I'm also a proud HBCU alum. And yeah, I look forward to being able to share more throughout the afternoon.
Thank you, Nicole. Next to Nicole, we have Bo Reese. He is the coordinating teacher of arts education for the Wake County Public Schools system, where he helps to coordinate the work of the 650 arts educators in North Carolina's largest school system.
Good afternoon. Besides that daunting job description, I'm like, what? I do what? I was a general music teacher for 24 years, a band director, and certainly serve as a choir director with the Raleigh Boy Choir, who now we're working with mixed gender choirs, and I get to lead one of those also.
Thank you, Bo. And next to Bo is CJ Morgan. He is, as Nicole mentioned, the co-founder and senior director of programs and operations at the Gifted Arts.
How you doing? I am CJ Morgan, also HBCU alum. I'm glad to be here to have an opportunity to as well to share with you all about the arts and just how these amazing experiences that happen on stage are transformative for young people.
Thank you, CJ. So I want to remind everyone that today this is All In, Community Conversations presented by PNC. I am Yolanda Rabin, and I'm very excited to be here today. And I want to just start right in and ask my first question. And it is, we see throughout Sister Act that being in the choir and getting to know Dolores, it actually changes the way the nuns feel about themselves and each other. Dorothea, can you share with us from your firsthand experience, what are the positive effects that studying the arts has on students?
I am an educator. I have taught everything from, you name it, I've taught it. I taught high school chorus and orchestra my first year out of college, and then I retired from the North Carolina public school system. My second, just a little disillusioned with the public school system at the moment, and my second job was to teach at a private alternative school. The students at this school were, this was their last chance. This was their last opportunity to be able to go back into the public school system. Most of them were on their way to complete expulsion because of their behavioral issues. Every one of them had an IEP, every one of them had issues. Now, I was brought in, not as a music teacher, just to teach general education. Wow. This was elementary and middle school students. and the reason I mentioned the IEPs is because we had regular meetings where the teachers and administrators and all of the powers that be that needed to be had these regular meetings where we had to discuss each of the students' individualized education plan. I learned two things during those meetings. One, they didn't believe that these children could learn. And two, they did not want them back in their schools. And from that, I also saw that in the attitudes and the students' beliefs in themselves. They knew that everyone had given up on them. They knew this was their last chance, but they honestly just really felt like there was nowhere for them to go because no one had any hope for them. For me, that was a challenge. And of course, there was no arts education curriculum. They just wanted me to teach them. They wanted me to get them through the day, pretty much. So what I decided was that this was not enough. And I decided that while there was no arts education curriculum, I just decided to incorporate it into my everyday teaching curriculum. What I saw happen as I began to introduce the arts to these students, and they began to show and be able to express themselves through the arts, whether that was visual arts, but mostly in the performing arts. They began to see themselves and see their potential and the fact that they could do more than people had given them credit for. Most of these 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders were all reading on a kindergarten level. No one had ever really pushed them to do anything. And I did that. I pushed them to be more and to do more. So I invited all the administrators to an open house. And so I told the students, I said, everybody's gonna come see you, okay? And we're going to put on a performance and we're gonna show them what you can do. And so they saw that I challenged them to do more than anyone had ever expected them to do.
So you were like Dolores.
Pretty much. And people came to that performance and to that open house and they were floored. Their jaws were on the floor. They could not believe that these students that everybody had given up on were able to do this. But not only were they able to perform, because they began to believe in themselves and see that they could do more, their reading scores, their reading ability, all of these things excelled so quickly that people were astonished at their ability and how well they were doing. And it was just simply because somebody believed in them. It gave them the confidence that they needed to be able to excel and to know that, they could express themselves through the arts without punching walls and throwing tantrums and punching out people and fighting and all of those things
Now,
that they
was
had
this in a
always done.
public school, you say?
This was a private alternative
Okay,
school.
so I want you to hold that thought. Bo, talk to me about public schools and that answer.
I grew up in rural North Carolina in the mountains, just west of Winston-Salem. Had wonderful parents. They are still married. I had a lot of learning disabilities growing up. And it was the arts and the discipline of an art that really gave me an opportunity to look at myself and to look at how I learn and how my learning is different from somebody else's, and that's okay. I might not be able to spell that, or I might have difficulties speaking and learning to speak correctly. But I was able to find an area where I succeeded, and from there, I made a career out of it. I started playing an instrument. I started getting into community orchestra. I think musical theater is the pinnacle of the arts because it pulls every art form together. And you're on stage with your peers you're just making love. That's all you're doing. You're just making an opportunity to bring joy in somebody.
Yeah, I can't echo that enough. The question was about a firsthand experience. And I have to tell you, when I was watching Sister Act, especially when the young Miss Mary Roberts, when she sang, my heart, I can't even tell you. What I can say, because I didn't fully say this before, I'm a singer-songwriter. I am a professional actor. I am a corporate attorney. And I went to a public school of the performing arts. And I know that I am who I am today because of my experience in musical theater, right? And so arts education is really close to me in a public school that you can learn everything you need to be and express it in all the things that you do just because somebody believes in you. You were going to say something, Bo?
Well, and this might jump into some of the other questions, but was sitting back here in Section G and came across a retired choral director from Wake County Schools. And I was like, oh, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in a few weeks. We serve on a couple committees. And she said, yes, I wanted to come today because she was here for a cast member who was her student 30 years ago. Wow. We had 2 or 3 Wake County teachers in this production. We had several Wake County graduates of arts education in this production. This is my home theater. This is where I come to watch the arts and to see people that I have taught. There's a stagehand, tech director, sound guy here that I taught him in kindergarten. And he made a career out of this. So we are everywhere.
Yeah, in the show, Sister Mary Robert is her name, and Dolores, they have this very special bond. And we just see how that bond inspires Sister Mary Robert to just start living the life that she never lived. This is the power of great teachers. Is there a particular teacher or mentor in your own past that has impacted or just affected you as a young person? And what messages or lessons from them have you kept with you?
I'll take that one. I had some amazing teachers growing up, but one would be my college mentor, who was a author for a national music publishing company, Silver Burdette. And I was going to be a band director. I was going to save the world one band at a time. That was my mission in life. And he got me interested in general music. And I made a career out of that just with him saying, it's like, Bo, you're not going to be able to meet the needs of every child in your class 100% of the time, but you will connect to that student and you will make a difference in that life. And if you don't connect to that student that you're desperately grasping to connect to, you're not meant to do that. Another teacher, another person will be there for that child. And that has gotten me through my 30 years of education.
That's wonderful. CJ?
I've had a few. I definitely remember 2. One would be my 4th grade teacher, and she's now I want to say a principal, and still the principal in Wake County. But my 4th grade teacher, and what was the greatest part about being in that class was we were allowed to be ourselves. We were allowed to be creative. And creativity is something that is near and dear to me, which has allowed me to kind of, be an administrator in the arts. Another one was I had a music teacher, a piano teacher, and I was having a hard time, grasping theory and, learning these different songs that I had been given. And this piano teacher in particular, she found out what I enjoyed. She found out exactly, what was of interest to me. And then that is what she was able to start teaching me theory through through that genre, through those songs. And then she also pushed me to play for, play for choirs and, to do different things. So those are 2 of the experience I've had with teachers that were a lasting impact on me.
Anyone else?
For me, my beginning arts education experience is maybe a little different from some of my colleagues on stage. I grew up in inner city Boston, Roxbury, Dorchester, and I attended an elementary school that would probably be considered underfunded. So there was no cafeteria, there was no gym, there certainly wasn't any arts education program. And I also grew up in the foster care system. And so at that stage in my life, I was about 8 or 9 years old, so fourth and fifth grade, I was absolutely looking for opportunities to engage and develop. I was shy, but I was smart in comparison to some of my other peers. I feel like I had a good academic start. But there was one teacher who invested in me, but it wasn't until I was an adult that I realized that she was actually invested in me. I thought she was just hanging on my back for a long time. But what I was realizing is that she saw the potential in me that I didn't. And because of my early childhood story, I was easily swayed and would follow a crowd pretty naturally. I definitely wasn't a leader at this point in my life. And it was everything down to, you need to work harder on your cursive. You need to study more in your math. And I'm thinking, I'm getting A minuses and B pluses. I'm like, I'm out here excelling. But there was a social crowd that I would connect to. And so what I realized as I matriculated through fifth grade, she came to me towards the end of the year when we were preparing to graduate. And she said, yes, somebody needs to deliver a speech for your graduation. And I was like, oh, who's that going to be? And then she was like, oh, yeah, that's going to be you. And not only are you going to write the speech, but you're going to memorize it, and you're going to deliver it in front of the entire class and the auditorium, all the guests. And I was like, this is impossible. I've never done anything like this in my life. But my mom was like, oh, no, you're going to do it. So I had my mom and the influence of a teacher who was able to see my capabilities. Apparently, I wrote a brilliant speech. I memorized it. I delivered it flawlessly from my memory. It was a long time ago now. But that memory sticks with me because this was an older white teacher that was working in predominantly black and brown elementary school, and I just didn't necessarily make the connection. I really just thought that she just did not like me, and I could never get anything right. But what that translates to me now in the program that we have is what Dorothea was alluding to as well, is that sometimes it just takes those few individuals that can see the things that you can't see the gold and the gifts and the talents that you're just maybe not mature enough or developmentally advanced enough to see for yourself, or you may not have that environment or familiar support that's encouraging and loving and pouring into you. And that is what we do wholeheartedly and at a high level at the Gifted Arts. It's all about, the arts are great for us, our students love them, but those informed messages and beliefs that you can and that can't is not in your vocabulary, or our call and response is gifted no fear, and teaching them that, yes, fear is okay, but how do we transfer that energy into a positive outlet and push through? Because the reward on the other side of that fear is going to be so much greater than if you just pass over that opportunity. And we're just constantly embedding that into the arts and the programming because it's transformative.
Okay, so what you just said is transformative. Let me just say thank you, right? If you've never heard it before or heard it enough, thank you. Because, I was telling someone that teachers are more powerful than you know. They have the ability to lift you up or crush you. And the fact that you are dedicated to instilling in a child, instilling in any person, to believe, right? Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, sorry, that was personal. So none of us, would be here today. And I'm talking about from the amazing people that were on the stage, all the way to the designers who actually brought all the amazing costumes. Were the costumes fabulous?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
When Dolores came out in the white dress, I just said, oh my. Yes. All the way to the end. Really, to the amazing people who are right here on this panel, right? None of this is possible if it wasn't for, believe it or not, arts teachers. And so I just want to talk about, or actually ask you all to talk about, why is access to the arts education so important? And what obstacles or barriers might young people in their own community face when just trying to access arts education?
You can
I'll
start.
start. I was a counselor in Wake County, 8th grade counselor, so I'm a little bit crazy, for 13 years. And that was before I was able to move full-time with the Gifted. And the one story that I always remember was standing with all the students coming into the building. And as a counselor, you get to scan everyone and see what's going on and how the day is going to go. And one day I just decided to ask all the students, what is it, tell me something great about you. And it did not matter didn't matter the color, didn't matter who, didn't matter the academic students that were doing well academically, not doing well, they all struggled with telling me something great about them. So if students are coming in without that belief and without that fuel, how hard is it for a teacher to teach math? How hard is it for a teacher to teach them how to read and how to write, or to challenge them? So one of the things I'll say about the arts is that it gives you that fuel. It builds that confidence. So you can take. There's no perfect performance. You're having to deal with whatever's happening in that moment, and you're either failing or you're doing well. Either way, you're going to take that experience and you're going to go to the next experience and say, I can do this because of the arts. So my start to that is having access to the arts for all of students. It allows everyone to start to have those experiences that can be transformative in their lives. And now we'll pass it to who.
Yeah, I'll pick up on that. So for me, talk about, like, I think I'm saying this correctly, that math is supposed to be a universal language. I say arts are a universal language. I feel like you can be anyone, anywhere, and you're taking in the same experience, and it doesn't matter what your background or language is, it translates. And what's powerful about that is I feel like it just inherently embraces and unifies people across cultural backgrounds and differences. And I think that's powerful, especially when we think about the current state of our society, the climate of our nation, and how there's a lot of divisiveness. And I think when you can see different cultural experiences and representation on stage, you can hear it in a melody, you can see it in a dance number, you can see it in film. I think that's a great opportunity to help lessen the gap in terms of our ability to understand one another as a people. It also inherently allows us the opportunity for self-discovery, to develop self-awareness, and how powerful is it when we know about ourselves, when we know who we are. How far does that take us when it's like you know what you stand for, you know what you're capable of. At Arts Access, there's so many opportunities, and I'm a major proponent for education, academic. My dad, I kept going to school. He's like, "You're going to be a professional student," and I'm like, I was cool with that. And I've been an educator in a lot of different settings and in a lot of different school districts. And while academic instruction was one component of it, I found that I was able to connect mostly with students when they were outside of a traditional school setting, where they had the opportunity for that social engagement or that project-based hands-on learning, or to be doing something extracurricular where you could tap into their interests, identify skills and abilities. And then when you learn those things about those students, as an educator, teacher, or mentor, you can then take that and teach them. I feel like you can, like what CJ was saying, you can connect with them more because now you're building trust and you have a relationship. But the arts inherently develop skills in what we talk about is like oral communication, literacy, the discipline, and how those skills translate into the classroom, into schools, into life. It builds confidence, innovation, ingenuity, things that as a former recruiter, employers are looking for in the workplace. It helps make them more competitive, and it does it in a safe and nurturing environment. And so I am very angered by those moments where we're finding out when we survey our students that 50 to 60% of the students who enroll in the gifted arts, and on average, they're probably already in 7th and 8th grade, have had no arts access, had no arts experiences. So we are, in many ways, and we take it very seriously, their introduction to the arts. And I think that's powerful. And for us, we are in our academy serving predominantly Black and brown children. And so you want to talk about the academic achievement gap, then you're talking about the cultural and arts access gap, and how that further just creates, again, that divide and limits their opportunity to advance and engage in a society that they're meant to thrive in, that they should also be allowed to succeed in. And then the list goes on. You have economic hardships because arts access in a formal setting can be really costly in traditional dance studios and theater, and so not many people are providing it, which is why also the gifted exists. You have transportation, individuals where they might be, I know Bo talked about growing up in rural community where arts aren't readily available, and yes, these are all areas that we need to address, and I know my colleagues want to speak.
I wanted to speak on the barriers as you're starting to get into there. I grew up as well in a rural environment, and there was, this there was more access given to those who were of a socioeconomical, status, higher status than I was. I'm that kid that was. I grew up. I had both parents at home, all of that, but I'm one of 13 children. Right, both my parents worked, all of the things. We weren't poor enough to get all of everything free, but we didn't have the money to afford the things that we wanted, we really wanted. So I was that kid that just did just enough. I stayed just above the radar. I was just that medium that people didn't really look at. I was that kid that just kind of fell in the gaps. And so people didn't see that there was a need. So while I knew that I was a talented person. I knew that I had gifts. My band, I was a band geek, all of those things. And my band director, he liked what I did, but I realized later in my high school career and things that there were opportunities that other students that I went to school with had that I never even knew existed. Because
Like
they
what?
just assumed things
Like,
like governor's school and all types of conferences and all of these other educational opportunities that were afforded them because people just assumed they could afford it.
I see.
And those opportunities weren't even brought
Presented.
were not even presented because they just assumed that, oh, they can't afford to do it anyway. So I too made a vow to make sure that those people like myself had opportunities that were not presented to others. I make it a goal of mine to offer arts education. I'm a not co-founder. I'm the founder and director of Andante Center for the Performing Arts, which is just the dream of mine, which was to make arts education affordable to people because it's not just enough to say that we want to do something. We actually have to make sure that those students who fall in the gaps and making sure that people know that there's an opportunity for them to have that formal education that may not have been afforded to them otherwise.
Well, thank you.
I was lucky enough yesterday to attend in Greensboro a meeting of the NCDPI arts educators across the state. And one of the celebrations that we had is beginning with the sixth grade class this year. It's enacted when they become a ninth grader, but we're beginning to track it now, that as part of their graduation requirement, one arts credit must be obtained on their transcript before graduation. We have, in this area, so many opportunities for students in the arts through various programs, through the public school, through opportunities like community theater. One of the things that we are stressing with my teachers, or with our teachers in Wake County, is kids of any color, especially black and brown kids, need to see themselves on stage. They need to see themselves reflected in the stories they read and in the literature that's in the classrooms, in the arts that they see. And that is our big push right now within our public education setting, is to make sure those kids can see themselves.
Thank you. That's a really nice way, I think, to sum up what we've been talking about. This is about raising your voice through the arts, a spotlight on arts education. I want to thank you all, each and every last one of you, for being here. But before we leave, can each of you please share some parting words of what you would want to impress, like your call to action to the people who are here with us today. And this is recorded, so the people who might look at this later on. What is your call to action regarding arts education?
I would say that my call to action is to encourage people to give. When you see that there are opportunities to support the arts and education, give. Doesn't matter if you have lots of money or little money. The very little and least that you can do is just simply give. Give of not just your finances, but also give of your time if you have it. Be able to give your time to be able to support the arts. Come out and see the shows. Let people see that what they are doing. Let the young people know that what they are doing is important, and give of your time, give of your resources, and let them know that this is important.
Thank you, Dorothea. Nicole.
I just want to echo, double, triple echo on that, especially as a nonprofit leader. So there's nonprofit and then arts, and then being arts leaders of color here, it's oftentimes challenging to get the financial resources to do the work that we're doing. So thank you for that mention. I will also say there's a beauty and a celebration that comes with exploring and navigating the arts. And I think historically in this country, there has been a higher value placed on what I would say are Eurocentric arts. So as you can and when you can, leverage your influence, your access, your economic status, find opportunities to invest in and identify and explore and engage with cultural arts organizations, agencies, and programs, because they are equally important to Bo's point about making sure that youth of color, Black, brown, see themselves represented in this arena. As we've seen on this stage, I was blown away last night. It's a brilliant production, but I think what I'm even more proud of was just the diversity in the cast. I've seen the original movies, and even where white individuals were originally casted in the movie, there were black cast members represented here on stage. And I'm like, wow, how progressive, how transformative, how amazing is that to see my community, my people here. And yes, that's very personal to me, but as people who work with young people who were in the audience last night with us, I was just so proud to have them sitting around us and see us, and not that we were coming to a play where they wouldn't see them, but they were coming to a production where they were celebrated. The audience, of a mixed audience, was celebrating artists that look like them, and they can see themselves up here one day. So please consider your cultural arts experiences an investment as well.
Thank you, Bo. Your call to action.
My call to action would be support your children. And what I mean by that, if your child wants to become a dancer, if your child wants to become a visual artist professionally, support them. Don't go, oh, you need to have something else to fall back on. Support your children. Lift them up to their dreams.
Thank you. CJ.
That's a great one. Mine would be show up, and that would be making sure that rooms are filled. When the arts is on display. I think that for what everyone else said, I will also echo give, but showing up and making sure that that hard work that we don't even know, from how when they're 3, 4, 5, all the years when they put it out there, that they're putting it out there in a warm and welcoming audience.
So ladies and gentlemen, please give a hand for these wonderful educators. If you all please stand up and take your bow. Thank you all for staying. And again, All In Community, did I say it correct? Yes, All In, Community All In, presented by PNC. Good day. And be sure to tell someone to come back to Sister Act, right? Because that's part of my call to action to you. This whole entire place should be full, right? Go tell a friend. Thank you.